At 8,000 meters below the ocean surface, the pressure is so intense, it would crush a human body into something about the size of a soda can in less than a second. The temperature hovers just above freezing. There is zero sunlight, no plants, almost no oxygen, and the weight of the water above is equivalent to having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you. This is a place where physics itself seems to say absolutely not to the concept of life. And yet somehow things are down there, living, hunting, and thriving in conditions that should be scientifically impossible. Some of these creatures do not even have proper organs anymore. Others have bodies so gelatinous they look more like floating bags of jelly than actual animals. One fish literally has antifreeze in its blood just to stop itself from turning into an ice cube. How is anything surviving down here? What evolutionary nightmare had to occur for life to adapt to this absolute hellscape? And what is the actual limit? Because if things can live at 8,000 meters, what is stopping them from going even deeper? To understand why 8,000 meters is such an insane depth for life, we first need to talk about pressure. Because pressure is the main reason why this depth is basically the final boss of the ocean. At sea level, atmospheric pressure is about 14.7 pounds per square inch. That is normal. That is what we are built for. But for every 10 meters you descend into the ocean, you add another atmosphere of pressure. So at 100 meters, you are experiencing 10 times the pressure of the surface. At 1,000 meters, it is 100 times. And at 8,000 meters, you are dealing with 800 atmospheres of pressure, which is about 11,700 pounds per square inch. That is like having an elephant standing on every square inch of your body, simultaneously. Most living things cannot handle this because pressure does horrifying things to biology. It compresses gases, collapses air pockets, crushes bones, ruptures cells, and denatures proteins, the building blocks that make life actually function. If you took a normal fish from shallow water and dropped it to 8,000 meters, it would not just die, it would implode. Its swim bladder, filled with gas, would collapse instantly. Its eyes would be crushed inward. Its organs would compress into mush. It is not a survivable environment for 99.9% of life on Earth, but somehow that remaining 0.1% found a way. So what is actually down there? Well, at 8,000 meters, you are in the lower part of the Hadal Zone. The Hadal Zone is the deepest part of the ocean. The Hadal Zone starts at about 6,000 meters and goes all the way down to nearly 11,000 meters in places like the Mariana Trench. It is named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. That should tell you how scientists think of this place. It is basically aquatic hell, and the creatures that live here are some of the most alien-looking things on the planet. First up, we have the snailfish. Before you think a snailfish sounds cute, let me stop you right there. It is not cute. The Hadal snailfish is a gelatinous, translucent, tadpole-looking creature that lives deeper than almost any other fish on Earth. They have been found at depths of over 8,000 meters, and one species was even recorded at 8,336 meters in the Mariana Trench, making it the deepest fish ever filmed. So how does it survive? The snailfish has basically given up having a skeleton. Most of its bones have been reduced to cartilage or have disappeared entirely, leaving a soft, squishy body that can withstand the crushing pressure. It does not have a swim bladder because gas-filled organs would be instantly crushed at this depth. Instead, its body is filled with a watery, gel-like substance that is incompressible, meaning the pressure outside matches the pressure inside, so it does not get squished. It is like the ocean's version of a water balloon. But here's the creepy part. The snailfish's body is so transparent that you can literally see its internal organs through its skin. Its eyes are tiny and barely functional because there is no light down here anyway. Its mouth is huge and gaping, designed to vacuum up tiny crustaceans and other deep-sea creatures that drift by. It does not chase prey. It just floats there, waiting, like some kind of fleshy net with a face. It is honestly unsettling to look at, but it works. These things have adapted so well to the Hadal Zone that they are actually thriving down there, which is way more than most creatures can say. But snailfish are not the only fish that have made the Hadal Zone their home. There is also the Hadal Cusk eel, which holds the deepest record for the deepest living fish ever caught. In 1970, a cusk eel was captured at a depth of 8,370 meters in the Puerto Rico Trench. That is over 27,000 feet below the surface. And just like the snailfish, the cusk eel has evolved to deal with the pressure by becoming extremely gelatinous and having almost no rigid structure. It is basically a tube of jelly with fins. These eels are so rare and so deep that we barely have any footage of them, and most of what we know comes from specimens that were caught in deep sea trawls and brought to the surface, which, as you can imagine, does not end well. When you pull a deep-sea fish up too quickly, the rapid decompression causes their bodies to expand, their organs to rupture, and their eyes to bulge out of their heads. It's not a pretty sight. So even when we do find these creatures, we still do not really know what they look like when they are actually alive and thriving down there. But fish are not the only things living at 8,000 meters. There is also an entire ecosystem of invertebrates that call the Hadal Zone home. One of the most common residents is the amphipod, a small shrimp-like crustacean that scuttles around on the ocean floor feeding on dead organic matter that drifts down from above. These amphipods are actually everywhere in the Hadal Zone, and they have been found in some of the deepest trenches on Earth, including the Mariana Trench. But do not let their size fool you. These things are tough. Their exoskeletons are incredibly strong and can withstand the immense pressure without cracking. And unlike fish, they do not have any gas-filled cavities, so they do not have to worry about being crushed. Some species of Hadal amphipods can grow to be several inches long, which is huge for a creature that is basically a deep-sea bug. And in places where food is extremely scarce, these amphipods have been known to swarm carcasses in massive numbers, stripping them clean in a matter of hours. It is like the ocean's version of piranhas, except way creepier. They are doing it in complete darkness at the bottom of the world. There are also sea cucumbers at this depth, which are exactly as weird as they sound. These gelatinous, tube-shaped creatures crawl along the ocean floor, eating sediment and filtering out any organic material they can find. They are essentially underwater vacuum cleaners. And because there is so little food down here, they will eat just about anything, including bacteria, dead plankton, and even feces from other animals. It is not glamorous, but it works. Some species of sea cucumbers have been found at depths exceeding 10,000 meters, making them some of the deepest living animals on the planet. And just like everything else down here, they have adapted to the pressure by having soft, flexible bodies with no rigid structures. They are essentially living blobs that can squeeze and stretch without getting damaged. But here is the thing. All of these creatures, the snailfish, the cusk eels, the amphipods, the sea cucumbers, are not just surviving at 8,000 meters, they are thriving. They have evolved to live in an environment that should be completely inhospitable to life, and they have done it by completely rewriting the rules of biology. They have given up on bones, gas-filled organs, and even proper eyes in some cases. They have become gelatinous, translucent, and almost alien in appearance, and they have found ways to make the most of an environment where food is scarce, predators are rare, and the pressure is so intense it would kill almost any other living thing on the planet. So why did they adapt to live down here in the first place? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. No competition. At 8,000 meters, there are no large predators, no sharks, no whales, no giant squids. It is just a quiet, empty void where the only real threats are starvation and the occasional deep-sea submersible. For creatures that can adapt to the pressure, the Hadal Zone is basically a safe haven. Sure, it is cold, dark, and miserable, but it is also free from the dangers of the upper ocean. And for species like the snailfish, that trade-off is worth it. They have carved out a niche in one of the most extreme environments on Earth, and they have done it so successfully that they are actually the dominant predators down there, which honestly is kind of terrifying when you think about it. But even at 8,000 meters, life is not without its challenges. One of the biggest problems is food. At this depth, there is almost no organic material drifting down from the surface, and the few creatures that do live here are spread out over vast distances. So how do they eat? Most Hadal creatures are opportunistic feeders. They will eat whatever they can find, whenever they can find it. Snailfish hunt tiny crustaceans. Amphipods scavenge on dead animals. Sea cucumbers filter sediment. It is a slow, energy-efficient lifestyle, but it works. And because the cold temperatures slow down their metabolism, they do not need to eat as often. Another challenge is reproduction. At 8,000 meters, finding a mate is extremely difficult. The Hadal Zone is so vast and so empty that the chances of two creatures of the same species actually encountering each other are incredibly low. So how do they reproduce? Well, we do not really know. Most Hadal creatures are so rare and so poorly studied that we have almost no information about their mating habits. Some scientists think that certain species might release eggs and sperm into the water and just hope they find each other, which sounds incredibly inefficient but might be the only option in such a sparse environment. Others think that some creatures might have evolved bioluminescent signals to attract mates from a distance, although we have not seen much evidence of this yet. The truth is, we just do not know. And that is one of the creepiest things about the Hadal Zone. There is so much we do not understand. So, if life can survive at 8,000 meters, why can it not go deeper? Well, it turns out that 8,000 to 9,000 meters is actually close to the limit. Below this depth, the pressure becomes so extreme that even the most well-adapted creatures start to struggle. At around 8,200 meters, certain proteins in fish cells begin to break down, making it nearly impossible for them to function. This is why the deepest fish ever found, the Mariana snailfish, was discovered at 8,336 meters. That is basically the absolute limit. For fish, beyond that depth, the pressure is simply too much for vertebrates to handle, no matter how gelatinous or flexible they are. But invertebrates like amphipods and sea cucumbers can go a bit deeper, since they do not have the same biological constraints. Amphipods have been found at depths exceeding 10,000 meters, and some microbes can survive even deeper than that. But for complex life, for animals with brains and nervous systems and actual organs, 8,000 to 9,000 meters is about as far as they can go. So what exists beyond that? Below 9,000 meters, the Hadal Zone becomes even more barren. The creatures that do live here are mostly scavengers and microbes. There are no fish, no snailfish, no cusk eels, just tiny crustaceans, worms, and bacteria that cling to life in the most extreme environment on the planet. At the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, at nearly 11,000 meters, scientists have found single-celled organisms called foraminifera, which are basically the simplest form of complex life. They survive by feeding on bacteria and organic particles that settle on the ocean floor, and that is the limit. Below that, the pressure is so intense that even microbes struggle to survive. At some point, the laws of physics just say no, and life has to tap out. But here is what makes the Hadal Zone so fascinating. Despite being one of the most extreme environments on Earth, it is also one of the least explored. We've sent more people to the moon than we have to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. We've mapped the surface of Mars in more detail than we've mapped the Hadal Zone, and the few expeditions that have made it down there have only scratched the surface of what's actually living in these trenches. Every time a submersible descends into the Hadal Zone, it discovers new species, new adaptations, and new mysteries. In 2019, a deep-sea expedition to the Mariana Trench discovered a new species of amphipod that had plastic fibers in its stomach. That's right. Even at the deepest part of the ocean, human pollution has found a way to reach these creatures. It is a sobering reminder that no part of the ocean is untouched by human activity, not even the places where nothing should be able to survive. So, to sum it all up, nothing should be alive below 8,000 meters. The pressure is too high. The temperature is too low. The food is too scarce. And yet, life has found a way. Through millions of years of evolution, creatures like the snailfish, the cusk eel, and the Hadal amphipod have adapted to survive in conditions that should be impossible. They have given up on bones, swim bladders, and even proper eyes. They have become gelatinous, translucent, and almost alien in appearance. And they have carved out a niche in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. It is a testament to the resilience of life and a reminder that no matter how harsh the conditions, evolution will always find a way. But it also raises a bigger question. If life can survive at 8,000 meters, what else could be out there? What other extreme environments might be hiding life we have not discovered yet? Could there be creatures living in the ice-covered oceans of Europa or Enceladus, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn? Could there be microbes thriving in the sulfuric acid clouds of Venus? The truth is, we do not know. But if the Hadal Zone has taught us anything, it is that life is resilient and far more adaptable than we ever imagined. And that is both inspiring and terrifying. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, remember to like and subscribe for more.